pay any taxes. For the mass of people, the rates went down much less. But that's not the funny part. The funny part is over the last 30 years, as the income tax rate went down for the average person, not by 91 to 35, nothing like that, but the Social Security tax on all of us went up. So they cancel out. The top income that you had to pay your Social Security withholding on was in the 20 and 30,000 30 years ago. It's 107,000. So what happened was the mass of average people earning average incomes had to pay more and more and more in Social Security that offset the less and less in taxes. But rich people who earn millions, you don't pay Social Security after the first 107,000. So if you earn $5 million, the bulk of your money has no Social Security withholding. The national anthem again. You live in a society that tells you it has no money to sustain the community, the collective, the city, the state, the town. To believe that and to formulate a politics on the basis of that is to give up the struggle before it begins. No left worthy of the name social opposition or social criticism should be doing this. There's no justification. Sir.
Ellen Brown, a few days ago, writing in Truth Out, said that the total collected deficits of the states was only 180 billion, which seems to imply to me that the reasons for not dealing with the problems with the states are a political program, not an economic program. This would be a petty amount to pony up.
Where did you read that? What was the number?
It was Ellen Brown, right?
Sorry, it's a generally agreed number. It's in the 150 to 250 range, depending on exactly how you count. It's a little bit misleading because it's a deficit that's right now, inflow of money, outflow of expenses. It doesn't count, and this is going to be a big political issue in the years ahead, it doesn't count the other thing politicians did. You know, if you're facing a demand by people for a decent life, what you can do that doesn't cost any money now, but keeps a union of public employees happy, is to offer them a good pension in the future, a good medical program when they're retired. But the problem is, that's an open-ended commitment, the cost of which you don't have to bear now, but you will have to pay. That's what you're going to be hearing everywhere. Oh my God, we didn't realize here in Dipsy Doodle, Wisconsin, that our mayor had committed to providing a reasonable health insurance for old people. Old people get sick, you see, and they need lots of tests. And the hospitals steal like crazy for these tests, and therefore we are having to pay, and so here's the choice. Is it your young working family or that old lady with 800 tests before she finally croaks? It's going to be real pleasant, this kind of discourse. But those are not counted in the deficits. Once you do that, and there are people who measure the obligations, then it gets really crazy. Then we're talking about sums of money, and that's what freaks out the corporations and the rich. They see it coming. They've got to head this off at the pass, because there's going to be people like you and me, as this gets uglier, who are going to say, gee, there's an option. We can take care of grandma's tests after she gave 65 years to work in the motor vehicle department. We could take money from people who have more than they know what to do with and take care of her tests. Why aren't we doing that? That's a problem. And the proposal to tax 1% of the richest people is going to have an intrinsic appeal to the other 99 that the one with 1% aren't so stupid as not to understand. And they need to control the debate. And they spend the money to make sure that Republicans and Democrats don't ask the questions I've been focusing on and keep us debating which is better, being shot or stabbed, as we wend our way down the street. Yeah.
I want to...
And we do need to...
Okay. I want to turn the conversation in a slightly different direction. I've been following you on your website, where you've posted some pieces that talk about, you know, reconsidering the nature of the firm, and introducing some kind of worker self-management. I'm curious where you're going with this, and I'm wondering if you are familiar with the Mondragon co-ops in Spain and how closely they are aligned with the direction that you're going in.
Okay, it's an immense question. Let me try briefly to explain it. Look, we are not the first generation to discover that capitalism has aspects to it that are not attractive. And we're not the first generation to discover that when you examine a capitalism that has as many flaws and bad results as this one, you're going to discover all kinds of internal contradictions and problems and injustices and inefficiencies and all the rest of it. And so over the history of capitalism's last 200 to 300 years, which is as old as it is, there has arisen a very sophisticated tradition of criticism, Marxism. Let me make a long story short. It is the biggest, best repository of experience, theoretically and practically, to criticize and overthrow capitalism. It has been active in every country on the face of the earth. The sheer accumulation of trials, of errors, of things that have worked, things that have failed, is stunning. And not even to mention the geniuses like Marx and Rosa Luxemburg and Lenin and all the others who helped think it through. Okay, so out of that tradition came, at least in general, a large movement that had an alternative to propose, as well as a criticism. The alternative it proposed was to substitute socialized property for private property. There shouldn't be private property, individual capitalists making all those calculations. Marx made fun of Adam Smith, a man he studied and revered and was very praiseworthy towards, but he also criticized this. Invisible hand was for him clown argument, not theory. And so he criticized private enterprise, and he proposed, and so his followers thought, that the government should take over, and in the name of all the people, administer productive property, land, factories, stores, offices. And the second great thing that this socialist tradition developed was the idea not to allow markets to make decisions. We don't decide what to produce, where to produce, and so on, according to what works in the market. That panders to whoever has the power to buy things in a market, and if that's unequal, then a market is going to unequally distribute. So instead of markets, we should have rational government planning of the economy. We distribute according to what people need and what we want in the society to develop, rather than what makes a profit in a market transaction. Now, if you think about it, both of these key ideas, socialize the private property and make a transition from markets to planning, these were the ideas that inspired the Soviet Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, the Cuban Revolution, and many others, insofar as the economic issue was contained. It was an extraordinarily powerful movement. It achieved political power in the biggest country by geography on earth, Russia, and the biggest country by population on earth, China. No mean achievement. It spread like wildfire. This kind of thinking exists and has existed in every country on the earth. I mean, it rivals the spread of Christianity or the Islam or anything else in the speed and power of its growth. It built massive movements, massive institutions, journals, newspapers, trade unions, everything. But it is now in an extraordinarily demoralized, dispersed, and weak state, this Marxian tradition. And I think Marx himself, were he here, would support the idea, okay, what was a powerful idea, what built a foundation of a movement in the 19th and 20th century, is in trouble at the beginning of the 21st. Not in trouble in the sense that it has nothing to say about capitalism. It remains the greatest repository of criticism. Nothing comes close to that. But capitalism has changed, and it has to change also. And there were serious problems in the societies that were established, like Russia, China, and so on, around socializing property and planning, because other things happen there that make those rather poor models for what the next generation of critics of capitalism are likely to get excited about. So now you get where I'm coming from. I need, as part of that tradition, to supplement, to offer something new and different as part of the criticism of capitalism. as part of the idea of what an alternative could and should be. And my idea is, and the group out of which I come, it's not just me, is that the old idea was very macro, very big. Change the property, change the distribution system from market to planning. We lacked, as a socialist movement, something that was revolutionary and transformative in the daily, immediate life of everybody, of every working person. The thing most of us do, most of our adult life, is work. 5 out of the 7 days, 9 to 5, we prepare for it, we go to work. If the revolution does not transform that experience in the most fundamental way, then it does not mean and will not mean what it needs to mean to get mass support, without which we will not have a serious criticism of capitalism in practical politics. So the idea is to supplement the big picture, socialized property and planning, with a focus on the transformation of the workplace, so that you no longer think of yourself as a worker when other people make the decisions what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the profits. That the new definition of work that a revolution brings is that you will have 2 job descriptions. 1, your particular task, and 2, your necessary participation in all the decisions of what to produce, how to produce, where to produce, and what to do with the profits. Or to say the same thing in another way, that the workers must become, collectively, their own board of directors. Not a board of directors selected by shareholders, no shareholders. That the enterprise will be, and all of us will be as much workers as managers, board directors, designers in charge. And if I had the time, I would explain to you, not only does that overcome the division between manual and mental labor, between drudge work and design, control and function, but it also overcomes educated, uneducated skill, because everything has to change to make such a thing possible. If I had time, I'd also give you, as an impassioned a lecture as I know how, about why we will never have a real political democracy, where people actually care and acquaint themselves with what they have to know to participate in running their communities. And the reason we'll never have it is because we don't do that in the thing we spend most of our life at, workplace. In the workplace, we are told what to do, how to do, when to do. We don't have any say at all. It accustoms us to accepting the same shit where we live. Of course, people they don't have the skills, they don't have the incentive, they don't have the experience, none of it, to run their lives in the community, because we don't allow it in the workplace. If you want to have real participation off the job, you got to give